Hello, welcome to another episode of Dr. Bertetta's Beginner Guitar Theory. As always, coming at you from the living room, Austin. I've got Sean by my side, and today we're going to kind of move things up a notch from what we've been talking about, in a sense. And now we're going to start talking about chords, okay? And last time, I introduced you to this idea of shapes, the C shape, A shape, G shape, and that was in the context of learning the fretboard in the major scale in the key of C, right? That's what we were kind of moving towards at the end. And today, what we're going to talk about, we'll talk more about that like next time. But since we're talking about scales, right? You know, I want to start talking about chords with what are referred to as the diatonic chords. So we saw this, it's another vocabulary term like scale degree. Diatonic means it falls within the scale. Okay, so we saw that last time. Respective of notes. So for example, like in the, C scale, C, D, those are part of the C scale, right? So those are diatonic, whereas C sharp or D flat, right in the middle, that would be chromatic or non-diatonic, okay? So the chord shapes, some of the chord shapes, what we're going to talk about next time, are diatonic to the key of C, and some of them are not, okay? So just like I taught you the shapes moving up the fretboard last time, next time we'll be talking about doing that same thing but with chords, okay? So today the diatonic chords are going to be our main focus, okay? And again, you'll be able to apply what you learn here to all other scales, all other keys, so key of D, key of E, whatever, key of G flat. So we're going to be able to apply what we learn here, okay? But since C is, no sharps, no flats, anything like that, straight white keys is usually just best to begin. That's what most people probably begin with. So first off, another vocabulary word. What is a chord? Well, basically, a chord is any combination of three notes played simultaneously. Now, there are such things as, power chords, referred to as power chords, where you're just playing that fifth shape. You hear that a lot in rock and heavy metal and stuff like that. But by technical definition, that's not a chord. Right? It's just easy to call it a power chord because it sounds freaking cool. It's a good chord. But we're talking about more of this technical, traditional definition of any three notes stacked together, and it could be more. Okay, it could be four notes stacked together, and I'm talking about playing all at the same time. So if you think about a piece of music paper, the ones with the 5 lines, staff paper. When we're talking about scales, just the single notes by themselves, that's when see like one note at a time on the staff paper moving up and down and so on and so forth, okay? So it's sort of that horizontal way of putting notes together. So today with chords, the way of thinking about chords is chords are the vertical way of putting notes together, okay? And so traditional Western music has constructed its chords primarily by stacking thirds. So we understand what thirds are now, right? Stacking thirds one on top of the other. So if we're still not familiar with a third, what is a third? I can take any note, so in this case C, and count up to 3. 1, 2, 3, okay? So I put those two together, so C, E. It's a third apart, right? It's a major third, as we saw. I go from E minor, now again stacking thirds, I go from E, F, that's my 1 now, E, F, G, okay? So now I have 3 notes. So because these fundamental chords are, 3/3 stacked on top of each other, in music discussions and whatnot, they're referred to as triads. Okay? Your basic triads. And these are fun, again, just as scales are fundamental, to being able to play music, play your guitar, so are chords. And I think spending time on really learning the ideas here is going to help you much further down the line, even probably not all that much further. But if we stack another third on top of that triad, we get what's called a seventh chord. Okay? So let's see how that, say, works. C is my 1, my 3 is E, my 5 is G, then I go 1, 2, 3, B. Okay? So now I have 4 notes. That's what's called the C major 7 chord. So if you've ever, looked at chord books and stuff like that, like what the heck is a, F 7, what is a 7 sharp 9, or what is a, flat 13 chord? I might not be able to show you exactly how to play one. I mean, I can play some of those funky chords, but I'm going to at least explain to you what that means. That, again, is going to help, your music understanding and, play some of those chords. And we can work out, I'll show you how to work out how to play those chords. That's why I can't just show you off the bat, because, I can't do, I just can't lay my fingers on all those chords exactly, but I know how to kind of figure it out, okay? So I'll show you how to do that. So, okay. So the triads, though, so now, again, I showed you can extend that chord to the 7th, and then it goes further than that, all right? And then you can change these things, like it could be, the sharp 9 or a flat 5 or a sharp 11, okay? So those things are going to, we'll learn down the line, but you can't really understand that stuff, I don't think, unless you know this stuff first. So back to the triads. So just as we talked last week and, or last lesson and before, the major scale, we talked about those numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Those same numbers in the same whole step, half step system, that applies to chords as well. Because basically what chords are is just taking the notes of the scale and stacking them on top of each other. Okay, so again, the chord C is, as we've seen, C, E, G. Okay, D minor is D, F, A, 1, 3, 5. So spelling of a triad, if the major scale is 1 through 7, the spelling of a triad is 1, 3, 5. Okay, I should actually put a little star on this 3 because, you know what, I'm just going to circle it because that's probably easier right now. The 3 is a little tricky, but I'm going to teach you, show you how it's really not so tricky. So, what's happening, that if you note a pattern here, so let's say we start with C, all right, it's spelled C, E, G, D is spelled D, F, A, E, E, G, B, so, and so on and so forth. So what's happening here? That as I move from the G chord to the D minor chord, every note, all 3 notes are just moving up to the next note, okay? C, D, E, F, G, A, B, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. Okay, so on and so forth with the 5. And the same would happen again if you're going to apply sevenths to it. So, not only is it integral to understanding, knowing the spelling or the formula 1, 3, 5, that's going to then also help you, again, learning other chords or learning where you are with chords, and how to, say, start beginning to make a chord progression. So, I'm not so much going to spend a lot of time on showing you the shapes themselves. I will. But, you can find all sorts of resources for the chords that we're going to talk about. And, of course, I'll have my my material on the Facebook page. So, our first chord, I should back up a little bit. So just as the notes are given numbers, 1 through 7, scale degree numbers like we talked about last time, when it comes to talking about chords, they're often written as Roman numerals, okay? So if you don't know your Roman numerals, you should probably learn them at least from 1 to 7, how to do them. But this stands for, so this is 1, okay? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the 1 chord, the 2 chord, the 3 chord, so on and so forth, okay? And so just as F is the 4th note in the C major scale, so too is F the 4th chord in C major, thought about in terms of chords. So, the thing to keep in mind, if you know the notes in your scale and you know what number they belong to, you're going to know what chords to play. Okay, when we're staying again diatonic. So the way chords move is between major and minor chords, and then you have something fancy and special called the diminished chords. And we'll spend a whole lesson on those guys, maybe even 2 later down the line. So what we're going to focus on is 1 through 6. So we're just, again, going to start in the first 3 frets area. So I assign my ring finger to the 3rd fret, my middle finger to the 2nd fret, and my first finger to the 1st fret. Okay? So with C, let's look at this. C to E is, again, it's a 3rd, right? But we also saw that E to G is a 3rd. But there are different kinds of 3rds. So I remember that I circled the 3rd in blue. So as we have talked in our discussion of intervals, there are 2 types of 3rds, right? Really, there's 2 types of a lot of the intervals, which also we'll get to at another time. But the 3rds are of utmost importance, okay? For a couple reasons. Not only, do they belong to the chord, but they're gonna the nature or the quality of the 3rd is gonna tell you whether the chord is a major chord or a minor chord. Okay, so as the names indicate, a major 3rd is a major chord. A minor 3rd is going to be a minor chord. So in the Roman numeral way of writing about chords, the capitalized letters, capital I, capital IV, or 4, capital V, that indicates that the chord is a major chord. Okay? When we're talking about the lowercase letters, then we're talking about minor chords. And again, this is a special case. This circle here means diminished. So you'll see it written with a circle or DIM. So minor, you'll often see sometimes too with, like, instead of writing the M, it'll be a little hyphen. Or it'll just be left alone, like just the lowercase letters. So if you've ever seen any of this stuff, that's what that's in reference to. So the major chords typically, at least for the triads here that we're talking about, they usually don't contain, don't have anything added to them. It's just like the 1 chord, right? And it's major. So just as you are working hopefully on your intervals, to really begin to kind of, make music, it's good to be able to throw some chords in there. Or else, just 1 note all the time would get pretty boring. So, we have a C major chord. That's my 1. Okay, so the reason this is major is because the 2nd note, the 3 in this case, is a major 3rd. Now, let's say my 2 chord is a D. Okay, well, this note here, this is an F sharp, so D string 4th fret, that's not in the key of C, okay, but F is. So anybody remember what shape this is? I went from that major third, I brought it down a step. That's the minor third. So that is why you have, say, C major, D minor, E minor. Then when I come to F, I have the major shape again. So on and on it continues. Now again, don't worry about the little diminished chord over there. So chords are defined as either major or minor depending upon the quality of the third. Is it a major third? Is it a minor third? Okay. So a major third, more sort of kind of chord theory stuff. A major third, since we're talking about 3 notes, we're talking about really 3 intervals, but we're going to focus on 2. And that the 1 to the 3, again, is a so this is major chords. It's a major third to and then the second interval is a minor third. So for example, C to E is a major third. E to G is a minor third. So major chords go major, minor in terms of their thirds. Minor chords, you want to hazard a guess? Well, the minor chord, of course, would be the first third is a minor. So D to F is a minor third. Whereas F to A is a major third. So it just flips around, okay? And just not to not to have the diminished chord there feeling left out or lonely. Those are 2 minor thirds stacked on each other. So special case. So that's kind of the theory behind these chords. And again, if you learn the theory, you can apply that knowledge to much more advanced sort of things as we move forward. So C chord, I have my C, E, G, C, and I can play it all the way down here, E, okay? D minor, open D string, A, F, D again, and F. So even though I'm playing, like in this case, I'm playing 5 strings, right? So you might be thinking like, well, how the hell is that a triad? Well, because some of those notes repeat. I have 2 C's, I have 2 E's, and I have a G, all right, C, E, G. Same with D minor, you're going to have 2 D's. So my E minor chord then, open E, B on the 5th string, E, the octave on the 4th string, then the rest of the strings are open. So I have a G, a B, and an E. So again, all those notes. F chord. I'm going to teach you just one way to play it, but there's another way to play it that we'll get to when we get to something called bar chords, which will relate to chord shapes. So in the near future. So an F chord, I have my 4th string on the 3rd fret. That's F. Okay, so I know, here's where I can begin to apply the idea of intervals. All right, F is major. So I know from the F, my next note is going to be a major third away, right? What note is that? Well, it should be the letter A. It should be A. And guess what? Woo-hoo. That's A. Now I know I go a minor third. Now this is where things get a little tricky. You know, you might have to think back to the discussion on the 3rd and 2nd strings, because it's this shape. Again, just 1 string down and 1 fret back. That's the minor third when you get to the 3rd and 2nd string. And then I just lay my index finger down and I'm on E, or I'm on F. Okay, F. Now where do I go? G. What kind of chord is it? It's a major chord, so I start with G. And I know that note. I know that's the third. You might not know its name yet, but you know where it is. But you can figure out the name, right? G, A, B. It's the third. G, A, B. So then the D is next, the fifth, and that's the open fourth string. The open third string is the G again. And this is preference. Here's these two options for the second string. Some people like to play their G chords with an open B string, because you can do that, right? It's in the chord. Other people, myself included, prefer to put my finger on the third fret second string. That's D. I can do that too, right? So that's called, say, doubling the fifth, because I have two of the same note in there. Earlier we saw like a doubling of C and a doubling of E with the C chord. So that's with the open B string. In here, it's subtle, but I'm hitting that D, that fifth, instead of that third, okay? So just to rehash, oh no, not rehash, I've only gotten to chord number 5, sorry. Chord number 6, okay, is A. And so here we have A minor, open fifth string, A. So the next note is E. So note that depending on where you're putting your fingers, even though the formula is major to minor third, your fingers aren't always going to reflect that shape, okay, or that formula. So for example, with the A minor chord, I'm going from A, the 1, to E, the 5, back to the 1, all right, and it's only here. Now I'm on the second string, first fret. It's there that I get the third, all right? And then I can hit the open E as well, because again, it's in there, right? A minor. So all together, C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major with my little D there, A minor, and well, this is a B minor 7 flat 5, but it's a type of diminished chord, and we'll talk about that one later down the line too. So those are the chords of the C major scale, the diatonic chords. Okay, and as you're learning your scales, you're learning your patterns, those different shapes. Practice those and practice your chords too. Strum them slowly if you have to at first. I remember when I first started, man, it took me, like, I have to sit there with my, get my fingers right and look at it. Now, eventually, it becomes second nature, and you'll get there too, okay? Once you get those fingerings down, maybe you just want to spend each time, a little time with each chord and just kind of strum up and down in different rhythms. Like that, and just move the chords around. You can do simple things like that, all right? So, work, most important thing, I think, the takeaway, at least, really kind of focus your learning on first, is the spellings of the chords themselves, all right? You keep 1, 3, 5. Learn this, okay? Because these notes are going to change when we start talking about, thinking about all this stuff in different keys. But these Roman numerals are always going to stay the same, all right? So learn what those Roman numerals mean, all right? So, again, thanks for watching. Keep on learning. Keep on rocking.